What will 80,000 new IRS agents mean to you? As you may have seen in the press over the last year or so, the IRS has gotten a great deal more funding from Congress and the president. And one of the things they want to do is to expand the number of IRS agents they have. Now, the number that's been thrown around quite a bit is 80,000. And whether or not it gets to be 80,000 or 40,000, however many thousand it is, it's a lot. And the IRS really is serious about going after compliance and making sure that people are following the law and doing the things they need to do. Now, from a small business owner's perspective, what are some of the things you should be thinking about and doing now to make sure that you're in the best possible position to handle an audit going forward? There are a couple of things. First off, one, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that the IRS will go for in almost any business situation. They'll start looking at things like meals expenses, entertainment expenses, and other kinds of shareholder owner expenses that are paid for by the company. And one thing that a lot of companies may not realize is that historically we've lumped meals and entertainment together, even in our accounting systems. I see a lot of QuickBooks files that say meals and entertainment. Unfortunately, in 2017, the tax law changed. Entertainment deductions are no longer deductible at all. So if you're buying sporting tickets for clients, opera tickets, whatever kind of tickets you may be buying, that entertainment expense is no longer deductible, period. Meal expenses are only deductible in 2023 at the extent of 50%. Now, the last couple of years, the IRS, Congress really changed the law because of the pandemic and gave you a 100% deduction, but that's now going back to 50%. And another thing that a lot of business owners don't realize is that even to take a meal expense as a deduction, there are strict documentation requirements. Each meal has to be accompanied with a receipt, and that receipt has to indicate who the meal was with, what business was discussed, and what was the purpose of the business meeting. Without those items of documentation, along with the receipt, the IRS will simply disallow the expense. Several years ago, a new client came to me while he was under audit by the IRS. He was a real estate agent who used his car almost exclusively for business, but he had no documentation. He also had a lot of meal expenses and other kinds of client-related expenses, and again, very little documentation. The IRS came in and essentially tried to disallow almost all of his business expenses. He was incredibly stressed at the time I met him. We worked with the IRS though, and were able to go back and not recreate documentation, but to find documentation and to be able to explain to the IRS that here were the things that he was doing and make them understand how much, as a realtor, he used his automobile, how often he was dealing with clients and prospective clients, and how difficult that was to keep track of. And we ended up getting a favorable settlement, and he was quite relieved at the end of the day, but it took a lot of work and a lot of effort to do so. Another area to watch out for are company cars. Company cars are great if your business uses them for their employees to do their jobs. However, people, again, need to realize you have to have written documentation of the total mileage used each year and the business miles used each year. If you don't have that documentation, the IRS will say, we're not going to allow the deduction. Now, one thing that's come about in the last couple of years is that there are apps you can download onto your phone that will track every trip you take in your car. And then it will ask you if you want to swipe right or left to determine if it's business or non-business. So if you have a real hard time writing all this information down and keeping track of it, you may want to consider one of these apps to help you out with that. So now that there are going to be a lot more IRS agents, whether it's 80,000 or however many more it's going to be, you really should ask yourself if your tax professional is doing everything possible for you to not only get your tax work done and get your tax returns filed, but to also make sure that you're taking advantage of every potential planning opportunity and that everything you do take advantage of is well documented and supported so that when the IRS does come knocking, if they do, hopefully they won't, you'll have everything you need to have them go away and issue you a no change letter. That's what we all want at the end of the day. Now, the 100,000 plus page Internal Revenue Code, plus the hundreds of thousands of pages of regulations, incredibly complex, impossible to keep up with for any single individual. That's why I'm a part of a think tank that includes the best CPAs and attorneys in the country, so that we're able to bring to you cutting edge ideas that are well reviewed, supported, and well documented, and to also make sure that everything we do is designed to give you peace of mind, so that if the IRS does come knocking, you'll be in the strongest possible position to be able to have them come back to you with a no change report, which is what everybody wants at the end of an audit.